Milwaukee Paracon Online 2020. Welcome to the 12:45 p.m. session. And this is exciting. We're joined by someone brand new to the Milwaukee Paracon, and we're really excited to have her. Her name is Zelia Edgar. She hosts a podcast called Just Another Tinfoil Hat. And it's also a YouTube channel and stuff. And so she's got a cool, fresh voice to the paranormal field that you guys are going to really enjoy. Today, she's talking about something that is very controversial, orbs. Some people are pro-orbs, some people are anti-orbs, but we're going to go into orbs today as a cross-field anomaly. So please say hi and welcome Zelia Edgar to the Milwaukee Paracon Online. I'm going to step off and take it away.
Well, hi everyone, and thank you so much for tuning into my presentation today on the orb phenomenon as a cross-field anomaly. So yeah, I'm Zelia Edgar, and I'm a lifelong resident of Wisconsin, and I've also had a lifelong interest in the paranormal and unexplained. And I do think that I owe a lot of this interest to the very bizarre history, the folklore, and weird paranormal tradition of my home state, in addition to just Wisconsin's kind of general weirdness. I also spent a lot of time growing up in southwestern Wisconsin, where my grandma lives. And, you know, that particular area, the folklore of that area was really a definite influence on my early childhood. I grew up hearing stories like the Nodolph incident, or as it's known in Platteville, that strange night in which two children vanished from inside of their locked home, or the macabre tale of Coffee Woods. In addition to that, too, a lot of people in my family, you know, were very open to discussing kind of the weirder things in life. My grandma remembered as a kid hearing this story about how a neighbor had this big hairy arm burst in through a window. And the house where my mom grew up had a lot of really classic kind of haunting type activity. So I think all of this kind of culminated in this really lifelong interest I've had in the paranormal and unexplained. And I've been seriously researching it for a little bit over a decade by now. I started with a really devout interest in cryptozoology, and then this moved through spectrology and into ufology, into this current scope where I'm really just interested in, you know, cases that kind of blur the lines between these apparently different fields of paranormal research and the effect that the paranormal and unexplained has on culture as a whole, and then in turn the effects that these belief systems have on the paranormal, perhaps. So yeah, and in this time too, I've served as the state director for Wisconsin's Mutual UFO Network, and I was also a certified field investigator for a time. Eventually, I stepped down from those positions so I could focus more time on my personal research and, yes, my YouTube channel and now podcast, Just Another Tinfoil Hat. So again, I'm really, really excited to be here today talking about orbs. So again, what exactly are orbs? They really are simply a subset of the more general anomalous luminous phenomena, which is associated with every different type of paranormal phenomena. And my interest in orbs, it really was kicked off by a personal experience I had in March of 2012. It was about 10 o'clock at night, and my mom was actually driving home from the store when she thought she saw this construction site off in the distance. And she thought, in particular, she saw this big crane with these lights on it. And then she started looking at it, and she was like, oh, there's not a construction site over there, and there's actually not a crane with lights on it over there. There's simply these four lights in the sky. And so immediately she called home, and I was inside with my two sisters, and she said, hey, go outside, there's something in the sky. So of course, we all three of us ran outside. Oh, am I having audio issues, or are we good? Oh, I can hear in this one. Okay, sorry about that. Anyway, yeah, so of course we ran outside immediately. And to kind of set the scene where, you know, this was happening, my house is located on a corner lot. So there's an intersection right outside the house. And on this particular night, the clouds were really low in the sky. And so it was one of those nights where they're kind of like self-illuminated by the city lights below. So it wasn't really that dark out yet. And there, just hovering, I would say about 2.5, 3 stories up in the sky, are these four perfectly spherical, perfectly even balls of this amber orange light. And it's almost difficult to explain exactly how perfect they were. They were these perfect orbs of light. And there were 4 of them hovering in this perfectly fixed parallelogram formation, just kind of lightly drifting over the intersection. And it was very strange because there was no structure behind them. And 2, there was no sound associated with them. They're just absolutely silent, perfect orbs of light in this perfect fixed parallelogram formation. So my mom rolled up and got out of the car, and so we're all looking at these balls of light. And as we're watching them, suddenly one starts rhythmically blinking, and then it blinks faster, and then it's gone. And there was nothing behind it. So that absolutely rules out those lanterns that people set off that are the bane of UFO investigators' collective existence. And then the other ones started blinking slowly, rhythmically, and then faster, and then it was gone. And then the next and the next, until they were all just absolutely vanished. And so it was very strange. And we were standing there waiting to see, if anything would happen next, when all of a sudden, this boy comes just tearing down the street, through our yard, across the street, up into a house, and he slams the door. So of course we're standing there like, well, he obviously saw something. So my mom and I walked across the street and knocked on the door, and the kid answers the door, and he's shaken. You can just tell that something freaked him out. So of course we start like, hey, did you happen to see? And he starts shaking his head. He's like, you don't understand. This isn't the first time they came over. This is the second time. And so he explained to us that he had been a couple blocks away at a nearby school playground when he saw either the same 4 objects or nearly identical 4 objects move slowly overhead in the same formation. So they drifted over. He thought they were gone. He thought it was fine. And then they came over again. And I guess that is probably when he decided that the Martians were indeed landing and decided to run straight home. So that is what really kicked off my interest in the orb phenomenon. And especially, too, the intriguing thing to me is that it's kind of claimed by each different branch of paranormal study. I think that when people initially hear the word orb, they immediately think of ghost orbs. And unfortunately, typically when they think of ghost orbs, they're actually not thinking about orbs at all. They're thinking about those photos of dust motes, condensation, and lens flares, which I'm not going to say that every single photo of an orb is not something anomalous, but the overwhelming majority, probably like 98% of these photos, are simply camera artifacts. So that being said, the cases that really intrigue me involving ghost orbs are any sighting with the naked eye of these orbs of light. Oh. And just checking the questions there. Sorry, guys. Hi, Laura. Yeah, if you have a question, just write it in the chat, and then I'll take a look at it. So yeah, any sightings of orbs with the naked eye, that's something that's really intriguing to me, especially if the places where they are witnessed happen to be places which have another history of haunting type occurrences. Places like the Matthias Ham House in Dubuque, Iowa, or the Rockwood Mansion in Delaware. Both of these locations lay claim to very classic haunting type scenarios of apparitions, unexplained voices, cold spots, and they also claim to have orbs wander through the properties or on the grounds. One of the most common types of haunted locations for orbs to manifest are also cemeteries. You'll see, a lot of these purportedly haunted cemeteries claim orbs of light as, among their manifestations, such as Bachelor's Grove in Chicago or Dartford Cemetery in Green Lake, Wisconsin. Both of these are known for apparitional activity. People also claim to see orbs wandering through the cemeteries. And poltergeists as well have been known to manifest many different types of luminous phenomena. I know this is kind of a step away from more conventional haunting type scenarios and kind of into parapsychology. But yeah, poltergeists have been known to manifest luminous phenomena such as orbs. A great example of this is the infamous Entity case from 1974 with Doris Byther, where investigators claimed that they actually, ironically enough, were seeing orbs that they could not capture on film. Some were captured, but the great majority were not. So after ghost orbs, I believe that the next most common field to lay claim to orbs as the phenomenon would probably be the UFO field. And there's a good reason for this. I know that John Keel believed that the majority of sightings of UFOs were actually of these so-called soft sightings, luminous objects, orbs of light, things like that, as opposed to the hard sightings of things that look like craft. He believed that the overwhelming majority were actually just, these different types of light phenomena that people were seeing. And truthfully, most of the cases that I investigated with MUFON, the greatest number of cases belong to things that were like orbs and other luminous phenomena. And I know in the Great Lakes region especially, there are a good many sightings of orbs. Currently, too, the National UFO Reporting Center has over 7,000 cases labeled fireballs and 6,000 more labeled a sphere. Now, not all of these are going to be objects we would label an orb, but a good many of them are. Two, if you go back through history, a lot of these mythological accounts and folkloric accounts of things that people say are UFOs are these balls of fire moving across the sky. Of course, these were translated in the different belief systems of wherever and whenever they were witnessed, often believed to be, symbols or portents from the gods or God. And, right up through the airship wave of 1896 to 97, among the many fantastical and sometimes embellished accounts of these miraculous airships soaring the skies, we also see newspaper accounts of these balls of light or fire. So, too, a lot of the UFO flaps from our more current modern times have been of orb-like objects, such as the December of 1965 flap, which encompassed most of the United States. The object in question was actually this silent orb-like object soaring through the sky. From Stan Gordon's Silent Invasion, too, among the veritable menagerie of anomalous phenomena that was occurring in Pennsylvania between the years 1973 and 74, a lot of different types of UFOs were reported. Many of these UFOs were actually glowing orbs of light. Two, UFO orbs aren't simply, a single orb-like object reported. I mean, that happens a lot. But also, too, we have these accounts where people are seeing orbs of light in conjunction with another type of object. I know in Big Sur, September of 2005, a diamond-shaped object was seen to emit orbs of light. And to take steps a little bit further into the weird, orbs have also been associated with the abduction phenomenon. A lot of people who claim to be abductees or even contactees, people who have either believed that they've been taken or contacted by other intelligences, cite orbs among their experiences. Even, and this is kind of, on the verge of genuine paranormal phenomena and possibly, something else, they claim that these orbs will appear to them in dreams, almost as some sort of messenger or guide. And I know Jenny Randalls, the British researcher, uncovered that many repeater witnesses had early sightings of light anomalies in their youth, such as orbs. And with that, too, she noticed that repeater witnesses, that wasn't necessarily simply people who would see more UFOs than typical. It was people who were seeing UFOs, people who were seeing unexplained creatures, people who were having ghost activity, psychic activity, or some combination of all of them. So it is pretty well established in conventional thought that orbs are observed in connection with ghosts and UFOs, but they're also observed in connection with cryptids. I know Momo, the Missouri Monster, the infamous case from summer of 1972, the whole place was besieged by sightings of this big, hairy, Bigfoot-like creature. There was a lot of high strangeness going on in the area as well, including disembodied voices, phantom screams, and sightings of green and white fireballs at the same time as Momo was laying siege to this area. Now, that area, too, also has a longer history of, yes, disembodied phantom screams along a certain stretch of road and a nearby spook light, recurrent sightings through the years of this unexplained orb of light. Also, from August of 1972, the Rochdale, Indiana creature was this Bigfoot-like creature which had some inherently strange characteristics. Some people who saw it believed that, or said that it appeared nearly translucent. Sometimes it wouldn't leave tracks even though it was traipsing through a muddy field. At another point, too, though, as if to contrast this apparent immateriality, it also was blamed for the deaths of over 100 chickens. So it was a very, very strange account that began with a luminous sphere exploding over a cornfield. And then back to Stan Gordon's Silent Invasion. This is probably one of the best collections of cryptid reports in conjunction with orb phenomenon. And again, Pennsylvania at that time, 1973 to 74, there was a lot of unexplainable phenomena occurring. It was simply amazing. And some of the most intriguing cases to me are sightings of these creatures with luminous phenomena, such as in Beaver County, September of 1973. Two teenage girls observed this white, 7 to 8 foot tall, Bigfoot-like creature actually carrying a luminescent sphere in one hand. And then in Derry Township, a farm which had recurrent strange activities such as Bigfoot sightings, ESP phenomena, and UFO sightings was also host to an orb sighting. Now, there's a very well-known, incredibly intriguing case from October of 1973 outside of Uniontown, Pennsylvania. where a couple was driving to visit with their family when they noticed this large, round, red glowing object in the sky. When they arrived at their destination, their family members were already watching this thing, so several of them decided to go and chase it down, see where it was headed. And as they were doing so, they were noticing these strange whirring noises, the sounds of a baby crying. And as they got closer to where they believed that this object was, the lights on their truck actually started dimming as though there's some sort of electrical interference. Now, when they arrived, the strange glowing orb was no longer that object. It was actually this huge glowing white dome on the ground. And these two bipedal creatures were ambling towards them. They had glowing eyes. What followed was an incredibly strange case of possession by something that the victim believed was inhuman. Again, a very strange case. And again, we have orbs. Now, there are places too, as I just mentioned, spook lights, where there are just simply these recurrent sightings of these balls of light along particular stretches of road or in particular locations. And we'll get into misidentifications a little bit in a minute here. But some of these sightings still remain unexplained, such as the Gurdon light in Arkansas, this multicolored light that bobs up and down a railway, and the Devil's Punch Bowl in Menominee, Wisconsin, home to gnomes and other strange phenomena and orbs. And then we also have, it's not simply a matter in this country either. Across the world, there are these places that are haunted by these mysterious globes of light, such as the Hoya-Bashi Forest in Romania, which is a UFO and ghost hotspot, or the Hessdalen lights in Norway, which actually are so prominent that they are currently still being researched as some sort of unexplained atmospheric phenomenon. So, two, high strangeness seems to just high strangeness is a factor in most paranormal manifestations, and orbs show up in conjunction with that as well. Places such as the Skinwalker Ranch, definitely a place of infamy in paranormal research, is host to myriad types of unexplainable phenomena, among which there are these mysterious blue orbs, which were actually held responsible for the mysterious incineration of 3 dogs. Now, this also ties not expressly to another case of orbs, but another case of mysterious luminous phenomena. When John Keel was in Point Pleasant during the events of the Mothman prophecies, there was this particular field that he would go to, and he would look at these strange purple blobs of light in the sky. Apparently, he went there so much and became so familiar with the area. In one interview, I heard him refer to them as his purple friends, these strange, mysterious blobs of light. Now, when he actually talked to the farmer who owned the land, the guy told me, he was like, yeah, I don't really go in that particular stretch of field anymore. And Keel, of course, asked why. And he said, well, I've lost dogs in there. So again, not necessarily orbs, but we have this luminous phenomenon and, a very strange connection there. And then two, genuine, just incomprehensible and high strangeness, the walking tree stumps of Spokane. 1966, a woman claimed that she had observed what she described as these walking, multicolored tree stumps. Yes, I realize how crazy that sounds. But later on, in the area, 25 people reported UFO sightings, and there are even several sightings of humanoid figures in that area as well. Now, the initial witness, the one that started it all with that sighting of these multicolored walking tree stumps, claimed that after her initial sighting, her house was haunted by these balls of light. So, it's incredibly intriguing that we have the orb phenomenon simply as a subset of the more general luminous phenomenon, showing up in very clear conjunction, with these different types of paranormal manifestations. Now, to cover this real quick too, yes, misidentifications do happen. I know I briefly mentioned the photographic evidence thing. It is just unfortunate that, a lot of these photographs of orbs are simply camera artifacts such as dust condensation, other particulate matter, or lens flares. But it does happen. And then as far as actual eyewitness misidentification, of course, that is a factor as well. Reflections of headlights or other lights, that occurs. Those darned lanterns, which are the bane of UFO investigators' existence, and yes, even the much-beloved swamp gas. These all can be held responsible for misidentifications of orb-like objects. However, some of the more common behaviors of orbs will show whether or not someone's dealing with a genuine anomaly or a case of misidentification. A lot of orbs will actually appear in three-dimensional space. They will look three-dimensional. They'll move through space. They'll interact with objects. Of course, that definitely kind of lays to rest any sort of reflection, which is dependent upon the surface, which is, kind of the background for the light that's being projected. It can't appear in three-dimensional space, working around three-dimensional objects. Two, maneuvering in fixed paths, especially when we're dealing with UFO orbs. If you have things moving against the wind or in this perfectly fixed sort of formation, again, that's not going to be a lantern or a balloon or anything like that. There are also other really strange behaviors that are common to orbs, such as going into or coming out of bodies of water. I know Ivan Sanderson really nailed down that connection in Invisible Residence, which led some people to theorize that there may perhaps be some sort of secret race which sends these orbs out as scouts or something, located underneath our oceans and lakes. But then, too, you have orbs disappearing into power lines and street lamps, hovering over power centers. It's really intriguing that they are found in just so many different sort of scenarios. But of course, the most intriguing thing to me is that they do show up in conjunction with other unexplainable phenomenon. But that is kind of a double-edged sword, because the thing I've really noticed with orbs is that they're never really defined by any inherent quality that they themselves possess. They're always sort of defined by the situations which surround them. So, I mean, if you see an orb in your home, suddenly you think your house is haunted. If you see one in the sky, then you've seen a UFO. If you see one with Bigfoot, most people will probably think you're crazy, which is really unfortunate because they do show up in conjunction with each different type of paranormal phenomenon. So I guess that, to me, that really does seem like it's evidence of some sort of connection. Yes, Jeff, the unified field theory of the supernatural. Indeed. I mean, it's generally accepted that ghosts and UFOs can manifest electromagnetic effects. Oh, Sherry, very cool. Anyway, so it is generally accepted that ghosts and UFOs can produce electromagnetic effects. Of course, the battery drain issue with ghost hunting is very well known in the ghost hunting field. And of course, UFOs have been known to absolutely fry out electrical devices and cars. I know one of Wisconsin's 3 UFO capitals, Elmwood, one of the main events that kind of spurred that popularity there was the Tuttle Hill incident of 1976, where police officer George Wheeler apparently had his patrol car absolutely fried by a sighting of some anomalous object. Interestingly enough, about a year prior to that experience, he had had another experience with an orb-like object. So again, that connection is there and very well accepted between ghosts and UFOs having electromagnetic effects. Where it's not as generally accepted, but I do believe it's getting a little bit more popularity today, which I'm very excited about, is the electromagnetic effects of cryptids. Because yes, indeed, sightings of mysterious creatures have been given responsibility for electromagnetic effects, such as the infamous Marlington, West Virginia case. In October of 1960, a man was following a bus full of his friends outside of Marlington, West Virginia, when his car stalled. And so he kind of coasted to a stop. He looked over to the side of the road, and he saw this Bigfoot-like creature with its hair standing on end staring at him. So his friends realized at some point that he wasn't following him anymore, came back, checked out what was going on. The thing ran off, and his car started up again, so no big problem. They continue on their merry way. Well, several miles down the road, the same exact thing happened. And his car stalled. He looked to the side of the road, and there is the same Bigfoot-like creature staring at him. Now, whether his friends actually went to check on him that time, who really knows? And that's not an isolated scenario either. Yakima, Washington, 1966, a silver-haired Sasquatch was spotted, and the witness's car engine stalled. So here we have these electromagnetic field disturbances around all of these apparently different types of paranormal manifestations. And, I think that then to add to this similarity, it isn't that far-fetched to say that orbs might be some sort of byproduct of some energetic disturbance. Ball lightning is often touted as an explanation for orbs. The problem with this is that we're not yet entirely certain what ball lightning is. There are a lot of really great theories as to what it might be, from plasma bubbles to particulate black holes. But as far as actually being able to say this is what it is, this is the, these are the conditions that definitely produce and this is how it'll behave, we really can't pin that down just yet. What it does show, though, is that energy can manifest in these anomalous shapes, often orb-like shapes, and behave in very anomalous ways, such as being able to move through solid walls, which both orbs and ball lightning have been seen to do, to maneuver around objects. It's very, very intriguing. So I think that, to look at this too, if we do have this kind of across-the-board electromagnetic or even just energetic disturbance being caused by these different types of paranormal phenomenon, and then orbs are kind of also this constant, yes, they're not in the majority of cases, but they are in a measurable fraction. it's really intriguing to see that then there are these connections between what we, for so long in conventional thought, have believed to be different fields of paranormal research. I am a big fan of John Keel, especially his superspectrum theory, which simply acknowledges that, yeah, we live in a fraction of the energetic spectrum. And then he goes a step further and suggests that outside of the spectrum may be, where these manifestations originate from. And so in this concept, it's that these paranormal manifestations simply are moving through our portion of the spectrum. And I think that really does neatly sum up a lot of the more anomalous behaviors that each different field of paranormal manifestations have. I mean, ghosts appear and vanish. UFOs constantly perform maneuvers that would destroy not simply conventional aircraft, but any physical type of craft. And then, of course, cryptids, they are known for having very anomalous behaviors as well. I mean, appearing, as if by magic and vanishing in much the same way, shorting out cars. And historically and folklorically, many cultures place these monsters at the border of reality between immaterial and material, between the spirit world and our world. And so I think that, that is kind of an attempt at explaining something that isn't exactly from here, to put it that way. And two, the super spectrum doesn't necessarily mean interdimensional. That's immediately what people start going through. It just means that we exist on this portion of the spectrum. There's stuff that exists outside of it. And, I think that's what really, really intrigues me about orbs is that, it's kind of where there's smoke, there's fire. We have these apparently different fields of the paranormal, which are, investigating apparently different manifestations. However, across the board, we have these energetic disturbances, and we also have the appearance of luminous phenomena such as orbs. Now, to take this even a step further, with orbs, the question is, what is the smoke and what is the fire? Because, sure, maybe they are some sort of, byproduct of the energetic leftovers from whatever disturbance may arise from these manifestations moving through our spectrum. Or some researchers believe, such as John Keel actually propounded the notion, that the light phenomenon might be the only genuine part of paranormal phenomena, and that the apparent manifestations of it are simply a mask for its true nature. That when people see a ghost, when they see a Bigfoot, when they see a UFO, when they see a walking tree stump, it's all simply a mask for some other thing, some intelligence, which is best represented by simply these light phenomena. So, and yeah, it's very intriguing either way. I think that it is evidence either of some sort of larger construct like that, or at least of common threads tying these apparently different types of research. I mean, because that's simply the intriguing thing is that the paranormal it's simply that. It's that which is outside of the normal, which we don't yet understand. And, I think that I have seen even just recently that the concept that some of this stuff or most of it can be connected has been really kind of emerging in the public eye. And I'm very, very excited about that. And, I think that, yeah, these appearance of orbs and other luminous phenomena, the appearance of these energetic disturbances really kind of are evidence of some sort of connecting thing. And that the more that we can look at these patterns between these apparently disconnected types of phenomenon, the closer we will be to explaining the unexplainable. So yeah, it is just, the orb phenomena is an incredibly, incredibly intriguing thing to me. So, and I think that it is. I think there is evidence there of some sort of connection between all of these different fields. But I guess as I have like 2 minutes here, if anyone has any questions, you can just type them up in chat and I will take a look, see if I've missed anything actually too. The connection to witches. Yeah, it's amazing because every single culture will have its different name for relatively the same phenomenon. So yeah, witches and fairies, UFOs, that's kind of our current thing. A definition of supernatural. That is a tricky one. Because I actually do think that the majority of the phenomena that we currently deem supernatural, I think that it is still within the realm of natural. I think that we just really don't understand it. And in saying that it's natural, I'm not saying that it's not something, I'm not saying that there isn't, something amazing about it. I just think that right now we simply don't have the understanding of it. But I think that with enough, enough time put towards it and enough understanding trying to be put towards it, we'll finally get there. What are my thoughts on Indrid Cold? That is a can of worms, Indrid Cold. I do think that there's probably a core, unexplained phenomena that happened there. I think that with a lot of abductees or a lot of contactees of the era, though, a lot of the time it seems like there was an initial experience that then kind of was spun into something that maybe was not so legitimate. So I guess that's probably to sum up very quickly, my thoughts on Indrid Cold. And am I still on Podbean? I think that for the Paranormal UK Radio Network, and thank you for bringing that up too, for the Paranormal UK Radio Network, I think we did change to some other thing. I'll post that on my website, anothertinfoilhat.com. How many instances of people seeing orbs? I think that to explain that away as lens flare, dust, and bugs, that's going to be with the photographic evidence. Naked eye sightings, that's not going to be so much the dust and stuff like that. But that's going to be, there can be other misidentifications for that. But as far as the photos, I think it's the majority, upper 90%, if I was going to be honest. But I guess I'm technically out of time. I want to thank you all again so very much for coming to my presentation. Very excited to be here at the Milwaukee Paracon. And yeah, make sure to check out book recommendations, anything by John Keel, Jacques Vallée, and definitely Demonic Reality too. That's one of my current favorites. So yes, check out my website, anothertinfoilhat.com. And also too, go ahead, I have an official t-shirt with charlesfort.org. So yeah, check that out too. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Zia. That was really a fascinating talk. And
thank you.
I love it now that we're getting high strangeness is it like that this idea that it used to be, well, okay, well, Bigfoot's just a big ape. We just haven't found his bones yet or whatever. And now you're like, hold on. What if Bigfoot's an alien? Like my mind was blown. That first idea, I was like, "Oh my god, Bigfoot's an alien! Why didn't somebody tell me about this?"
No kidding, right? Yeah, it is. It's making a comeback, and I could not be happier.
So please check that out. Also on the site on the talk page, you'll be able to see more on her cool Charles Fort t-shirts, and make sure you check out Just Another Tinfoil Hat. And I know T just put Zelia's YouTube channel in the settings. So make sure you check all that stuff out. And once again, thank you very much, Zelia. Everybody, we're taking a 15-minute break right now, and then we're going to have some more UFO developments with Mysteries Decoded host and vice writer MJ Banias coming up. I'm going to put that link right in here if you guys haven't signed up for it yet, so that you will get that coming to you in your emails. So everybody, once again, thanks, Zelia, and everybody out there. We will see you in 15 minutes.